I'm Udo Berardinis from the EHS office, and I was happy to see that April's #1 priority was health and safety, because that's near and dear to my heart as well. And so the things I'm about to present really apply to anywhere off campus. I know this is focused on international, but as you'll see going through, if anyone is leaving to do some work or some activity off campus, there are a number of things that need to be considered. So what I'm going to present is basically what are the things that you or the traveler should be thinking about or asking before you leave. What do you need to find out about where you're going and what you're doing? So I'm a little bit more focused on the activity rather than the surrounding culture and in the particular country. And then tell you a little bit about why you need to think about those things, and then how the kinds of things that can be done to help mitigate or prevent some of the adverse effects that might occur. So what do you need to know? So these are the questions that one needs to think about and where they're going, whether they're going to work at a particular company, at another university, or visit just a general area after a hurricane or after an earthquake to look at it. Asking the questions, is my activity there going to result in me working with or in any of these particular hazards? The more difficult one is or very near, so I may not be working with chemicals, but I may be in a laboratory or in an industry where there are chemicals used. I need to identify that up front before I can figure out what I need to do to protect myself. Will I be near any equipment that might present electrical hazards or high voltage, or be any moving machinery parts? And then in the area, particularly in the local area, are there any of these other insects, animals, snakes, kinds of things that I need to protect myself against as well? And then also just looking at the environment that I'm going to be in, the surroundings, whether I'm going to be in extreme heat. So many of our folks go to Hawaii, for example, or other areas where there might be some extreme heat. And that can lead to minor things, relatively minor, like sunburn, about all the way up to heat stroke as well. Or at the other end of the spectrum, extreme cold, which again might start with frostbite, but could lead to things much more serious than that as well. Falling from heights is an interesting thing to consider. So the pictures here kind of show a mountain, but one could be working or be going to visit areas where they will end up on the rooftop someplace to look at a piece of equipment or do some measurements or some other activities, and there could be real potential for falls from heights. We have had people in the past number of years. We had an assistant professor who fell and broke his leg on a trip. So these kinds of things can happen. The last one is a little bit more insidious, and that is going into a confined space, because confined spaces are hard to identify or characterize, particularly in advance. But if one has to go, again, wherever you are, if that particular operation takes you into some vaults or some enclosed areas, there is a potential for oxygen deficiency, or if it contains any other materials in there. So up front, you need to try to identify what those things are. Why? Because they are the potential hazards that you may encounter, and as many of those as you can identify will help drive you to determining what do I need to do to prepare in advance if things happen, and what do I do if I'm over there if things happen as well. And some of these things have been mentioned by some of the other speakers in terms of preparing, having the right clothing, the right shoes, first aid kits, medication, et cetera, that might be needed to combat any of the issues that you may face. Also, if things do happen, we like to see them reported. This is kind of after the trip, but or during. Technically, under the law, MIT is responsible for any employees, not students, but employees over wherever they are who get injured, that we have to keep a record of that. It's called an OSHA log, and we have to maintain that log for any of our employees who may get injured. More importantly, what happens when these reports come in is we learn from them so that we can identify new hazards and kind of go from there. So it is important to do that. Finally, so how can you do all this? We do have 2 documents that can be used from our website, which is down below, a field research safety guidance, which is really meant to prompt a lot of questions, a template that you can use to develop a health and safety plan as you go there. We have a whole variety of standard operating procedures, confined space, fall from heights, and a bunch of other things that you can run into. That link will take you to our website, and you can just plug in the number as well. One thing we don't perhaps use enough is if there is a host institution, another university or another industry, our default usually when someone goes to another institution is their health and safety office is taking on the responsibility of all people that come there. I mean, we do that to anyone that comes to MIT, but we can connect with some of those, or you should connect with some of those as well. The last thing I'll mention is you all perhaps should be familiar with Ethics Point. So if some of you or some of the students have some concerns and want to express it but remain anonymous for other fears, Ethics Points is a third party that MIT has hired that will allow people to express a concern but not necessarily have their name associated with it, and the third party then contacts relevant people. I'm one of them, if it's a health and safety matter, to help them address it. So hopefully these sites can help you, and emailing environment at MIT gets to a general mailbox, which the question then gets directed to the appropriate expertise within EHS.